So we go backstage, and they put us in like a room at the Xcel Energy Center.
Okay.
Couch and a coffee table. And we're sitting there waiting. In walks first is Donnie. No bodyguards, no handlers, no publicists, nothing. Just Donnie.
Okay.
Followed 2 seconds later by Joey.
Hot.
And Donnie, first thing that he says is, I don't like the lighting in here. No, the first thing he said was, hi, how are you? Okay. I'm Dave. This is Kate. Blah, blah, blah. I don't like the lighting in here, he says. And he starts walking around trying to figure out how to flip off the fluorescent lights overhead.
Okay.
And there's some lamps in there, some freestanding floor lamps, and he's like trying to adjust those.
Really?
And Joe is like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Jordan comes walking in. And again, it's the 5 of us in this room. No, I've never done an interview ever where there's not a publicist or a manager standing by to make sure everything's cool.
Yeah.
And to wrap it up, because a lot of times the person doing the interview will go on and on and on. And they usually go, you have 5 minutes.
Yep.
Don't go over 5 minutes.
And so they spent, no kidding, probably 5 minutes playing with the lights and basically ignoring me and ignoring Kate. And I just kind of let them do their thing.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a picture up, and I don't know if it's up there yet.
I'm going to do that as soon as we're done talking, yeah.
Why don't you do it as we're doing it?
Okay.
And then people can go see this if we're talking about it. And then there's a picture of Jordan standing behind a curtain, and he takes a floor lamp and he shoves it in Joey's face, like, I'm going to interrogate you.
Really?
And it was just funny.
Yeah.
They're just funny. They're just screwing around. So then they sit down for the interview, and I was sitting next to Jordan.
Okay.
And Donnie is over here on my right, and then on the couch is Joe. And here is a clip from the interview. Comes in 2 parts. This part and another part coming up in a few minutes. Backstage, one of the most casual interviews that I've ever done. This time with new kids on the block.
Yes.
Now, do you guys get to do things like watch TV, watch games, do like all that stuff on the road, or does it just go from interview to concert to the venue to the hotel?
We do. We got the TV in the dressing room. I mean, actually, all the games are getting played during the show, but we would catch the last bit or whatever. Luckily, I think we missed them losing the series, which was good. But sometimes you can fall into the trap where it's tough to go to bed after the show, and you can go to bed at 4 in the morning, and then you wake up at 4 in the afternoon, and then you do another show, and it's like the cycle that you can kind of get into. So,
do you ever do the thing where you forget what city you're in? And you're like, what up, Cleveland? Greeted with silence. I mean, Detroit. You ever do that before?
No. Check off.
I've done that back in the day. I would do it now, but I just don't say anything. So I just stay quiet until I really, really know what city I'm in. But each city, I got to tell you, each city does feel a little different. You can tell the difference in the crowd and just, the difference of it.
And now we're going tonight, north, yeah.
Minneapolis,
Dallas.
St. Paul.
We were in Dallas, and we were in Texas, and that definitely has a vibe. So now we're up north, and
where you see people in the crowd wearing mittens,
right?
Then you're in Minneapolis, St. Paul,
right.
Speaking of shows, I mean, you guys do great shows. I saw you guys at Mall of America a couple of months ago, and it was just
a great show.
No, I thought it was a great show. I was right there in the front. I was like a groupie taking pictures.
We're grateful that you say that.
I thought it was a great show, and people waited in line from 8 o'clock or the night before. It's crazy.
I visited the scene of the crime last night. I was there.
Were you at the mall last night?
Yeah, I was at the mall. That was like almost kind of one of our first performances in front of a very energetic crowd.
They were very energetic, yeah.
So it kind of unnerved a couple of us.
Well, I'll tell you something. I mean, now that's interesting because you guys must be really critical. You walk off stage and the audience is like, "That was awesome," but you guys, what do you look for? What could have been different about that show that you didn't like?
We have the inside intel on what can go wrong and what does go wrong. A lot of times the crowd doesn't realize it.
Right.
That's the thing. Yeah.
But a lot of the little things that we nitpick, they go unnoticed, but we like to stay on top of it because that makes for a better performance.
Yeah, it's fun to look at different performances, and now with everything on YouTube, like I remember looking at that performance on YouTube and going, oh, well, actually, sometimes it's good because you're like, oh, it's better than I thought. You know what I mean? But with this, this show, every show. I mean, the great thing about it is, doing a big tour is, you have you get to learn from every show, you know what I mean? And you get to, there's always a next day, you know what I mean? And even though every show, literally every show on this tour has just been a blast and amazing, and it's just so much fun. So, but to be able to have the opportunity to work on your craft and just get better and have this experience in this stage to keep doing what you love to do is awesome.
All right, so we got more coming up in a second, and then Donnie's going to talk about the time that he fell through the stage and almost died.
And
he really talks about how they told him that a certain part of the stage was safe to step on, and he stepped on it, fell through it, and he says, "You don't realize how close I came to dying."
I had never heard this before.
It's an interesting story. And then afterward, there was just it was like a weird casual vibe. There was no managers, anybody backstage. And so afterward, we're like, okay, cool. Thanks for your time. I said, I know you guys got stuff to do. You got to go do the meet and greet, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, nah, cool. It's all right. They were totally not on the timeline or anything. And then Donnie grabs my camera and starts taking pictures. And he does the thing where he comes up and he holds the camera out at arm's length and he takes a picture of me.
Nice.
And it was very cool.
Well, that's fun. I wish I could have seen them. I really like them a lot. Even, you hear stories or whatever, but they're all really nice guys.
Yep. And we will come back with part 2 in a couple of seconds on 101.3 KDWB. New Kids on the Block concert last night at XL Energy Center. This is part 2 of the interview. If you missed any of this, it'll all be online later on KDWB.com. The picture's up yet?
Yep, I'm just hitting finalize, putting captions on them.
Oh, you're putting captions on them?
Ooh. Yeah, just because really, if you look at the pictures, you're going to be like, I don't get it. I don't get the one where you just see 2 hands and a curtain.
This is weird. This is where they were clowning around and there was a curtain and let's see, Donnie was on the couch and Joe was on the couch and Jordan, and again, they're ignoring me. They're just doing their own little thing.
Yeah.
Jordan goes behind the curtain and he's telling some story about some preacher who's standing behind a curtain. And they're like, oh, yeah, I know about that guy. And I'm like, hi.
I'm from Minneapolis.
And I didn't want to force the interview and say, guys, let's get the interview started. So I let them do their thing. And then finally they sat down and we did the interview. And here is part 2.
I remember back it was about 1991. Donnie, when I think did you fall through a trap door during a concert?
1990.
Oh, you remember?
I can tell you exactly the date and time.
Really?
Early September. Saratoga.
How did this whole thing go down? And I don't want to bring up a painful memory or anything like that, but I remember I was working at a radio station in Phoenix, and it was like every fan was like, "Oh my God, is he okay? Is he okay?" It was like headline news for about 2 days.
It's funny. It was headline news. And I was pretty much okay, but the reality is I really probably came within an inch of being dead. Really. I mean, it was...
What happened? Was it just
broke your neck so
yeah,
easily?
It could have happened really easily.
It's just a door that opened? And
no, it's disputed what I was told to do, and I've seen television shows where people say what happened and what my instructions were, but I know exactly what my instructions were. We had a new stage, and there was a trap door for the magic tricks, and there was grating. Our onstage monitors were built under the stage.
Okay.
So there was a streamlined stage. You wouldn't see any bulky monitors on the stage. They were built under the floor. But there was a grating which I had jumped on in the rehearsals, and the builders of the stage and the guy who built the magic trapdoor and stuff told me that they said that the grates wouldn't hold me if I jumped on them from the upper platform, that I should jump onto the trapdoor and that it was strong enough to hold me.
And it did not.
Well, it wasn't latched properly when I jumped on it, so I went right through it.
Wow. But you were okay.
I thought it was the bolts, actually. It was latched, but it was the other side, the bolts that were the hinge.
I think one of the latches wasn't done right. It's hard to say after the destruction of it, but whatever the case,
Do
you remember that show?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. On the E! True Hollywood Story, one of our road crew guys said, I distinctively remember hearing them say, Donnie, don't jump on that door.
Was that Brad?
And you know Donnie, he jumped on that door.
Well, you're always a troublemaker.
Yeah, but he does not distinctively remember anything.
It's so those stories, those TV stories, man.
I mean, I was told to jump. I was told not to jump somewhere else, and I said, well, if I don't jump there, I have to jump there. And they said, you could totally jump there; it'll hold you. So I did.
And it did not.
No, and it was amazing because it was like a little 2x2 square square in the middle of the floor, and I went right through it, like just vanished. And the crowd thought it was a magic trick that I disappeared. And
so look,
the other guys are up at the front of the stage waiting for me to land from my jump so the show can end. And they must have like turned around and were like, where'd he go? You know what I mean? And meanwhile, I'm under the floor, like curled up in a ball, bleeding.
We can laugh now because you're okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's see. It's things like that. See, I mean, the crowd, again, they think it looks great. They're like, oh, wow, it's amazing.
Well, that's extreme, though.
Wow.
That's an extreme case, boy.
Guys, thanks so much for the time. This has been one of the cooler interview settings that I've ever been involved in. Usually it's like, I think I interviewed Lance Bass over a trash can one time because they couldn't find a room for us. So I set my recorder over a trash can. I set my recorder on a trash can. Wow. And we were also given a list of like 14 questions that we were not allowed to ask Lance Bass. No. We couldn't ask him about being in space and that type of thing. You guys are very cool. You let me ask absolutely anything.
He was just tired of answering those questions?
He was tired of answering the questions about space, and I think it'd become kind of embarrassing for him. Is there any questions that I shouldn't ask you, Jordan? I mean, really, what would he not want me to ask him?
He would not want you to ask him about going into space.
Have you been into space lately, Jordan?
My own headspace, yes, but that's about it.
All right. You want to turn tables on Donnie over here?
No.
I want to go into space.
14 questions? What were the other ones?
Oh, I don't remember. It was like, don't ask about relationships. Don't ask about this.
Right.
And they were at their peak at the time, and I think they had been just harassed so much about everything.
Just dead tired.
Guys,
thanks, man.
Thank you very much.
If you missed any of that, it is on going to be on KDWB.com a little bit later on today, and the pictures should be up on connect.kwb.com/Dave.
Yep, they're there right now. It's such weird pictures too. Again, you're gonna look at them and you have to read the little descriptions underneath each picture because there's one where it looks like Joey's speaking to a lamp. And then
looks
there's
like
one
the moon. It looks like he's speaking to a moon that's hanging in front of his face.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's Jordan behind a curtain taking a floor lamp and poking it in his face and saying, "We're going to interrogate you."
It's like, what? You guys, I mean, really? They're not 16 anymore. That's like 16, 17-year-old guy humor or guys that are just stoned out of their minds.
They're back together. They're having fun.
I know,
that's
true.
the thing is like, you think that these guys have been through so much over the last 20 years and they still get along well enough. I mean, at least those three did. Who knows? Maybe the other two don't even want to be in the same room with them. I know that Jonathan didn't show up for whatever reason to the interview or the meet and greet with the fans. Here's another story, and I've heard this now from a couple of people, and I'm not trying to like dish dirt. I'm just telling you, here's some gossip stuff that we found out, that afterward there was a backstage pass thing where girls get backstage passes and they get to go back after the show.
Yes, and meet the guys.
Talked to a couple of people who have texted and said, we went back with a room full of about 15 or 20 other women. We were put into a room and said, yep, they'll be back in a while. And 2 hours later of waiting, they never showed up, and somebody finally came in and said, yep, they left. Sorry, guys.
Oh, that sucks.
So all these girls thought they were going to get to meet the new kids backstage. And I'm not trying to like rip on them because maybe they just weren't in the mood. Maybe they were tired. You got to understand, these guys have been doing this for a really long time, and their schedule's got to be exhausting. But I just want to pass that along. It was kind of an interesting little twist.
And one thing you never know is maybe there's miscommunication. We talked to Jenna Fisher once, and we had sent her something or we had told her to do something and she never got the information from her people. And so a lot of times, maybe they didn't know or they didn't know where it was or they thought it had been canceled. You don't even know. There's always miscommunication too.
You never know. So want to check out the pictures are on connect.kwb.com/Dave. All right. We'll be back in a second on the Dave Ryan in the Morning Show.